I am Chris Carpenter, better known as Chris Rex, and for the last 9 years I have been traveling up and down the roads as an independent professional wrestler. I have had the opportunity to train, work with, and share locker rooms with some of the best to ever step foot inside the squared circle. My co-host is Alex Al-Kazzaz, aka the Bear of Texas. A journalist born outside of Lyon, France, he moved to the United States at the age of 4, and his love of sports is what led him to become a sports writer. And with 7 years under his belt already, the sky is the limit for this young Texan. Together, we mix my knowledge and professional experience with his research and sports journalism to bring you a unique view on Vice TV's hit series, Dark Side of the Ring. This is Dark Side of the Podcast.
Dino Bravo was a professional wrestler and booker who during the 1980s was so popular, he was dubbed the Hulk Hogan of Montreal. Standing at 6'1", weighing 265 pounds, Dino Bravo seemed like a shoo-in for Vince McMahon's World Wrestling Federation at the time, who were signing the top talent in Montreal to financially satisfying contracts. Ultimately, Dino Bravo would join the WWF, but he would not reach the on-screen success that he envisioned for himself. In 1992, after 7 years with the World Wrestling Federation, Dino Bravo was released from his contract. With no other means of making an income, he turned to the life of crime, and on March 10th, 1993, he was found dead. He had been shot 11 times, and he was murdered by an unknown assailant at his home in Montreal while watching hockey. 27 years later, the case is a bizarre mystery and remains unsolved. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Alex Al-Kazzaz, aka the Bear of Texas, and I am here with pro wrestler and current Infinite Pro Wrestling Fury TV champion Chris Rex, and tonight we discuss the assassination of Dino Bravo. Chris, this ride just got bigger.
It seems like every episode we're saying that, man, but it's true. This was definitely right. Like, it was so many twists and turns. Like how we talked about last week, where how I kind of try to piece the puzzle pieces together, and try to figure out the story myself. Every time I thought I kind of had an idea of what was going on, you come back from commercial break and boom, it's another twist. And it was just, wow, man. Like, I knew that Dino Bravo had been murdered. But again, I wasn't even a thought when he was wrestling, and I was only about 3 years old, not even 3 years old when he had passed away. So all I had known really is that Dino Bravo was murdered. Now that I watch this episode and I see everything that had gone into it, oh man, I'm like, whoa, like, we really don't know these guys' lives behind closed doors, man.
We don't. And what a major understatement that is, the fact that we do not know what's happening in the wrestlers' lives outside of the ring. It's just, the whole series is a mystery after mystery after mystery. That's why this may be the best wrestling documentary series ever, and I don't think anything's ever going to top it. So let's get right to it. So Dino Bravo was he was actually born in Italy. He was grew up in Canada. As you said, he dubbed as the Hulk Hogan of Montreal, and it's just amazing because we learned how wrestling was a huge thing in Canada, and I mean in Montreal might have been the most popular spot in wrestling in the country of Canada.
Oh yeah, definitely. The stars that came out of Montreal, I mean, before they went to WWF, you had Andre the Giant, you had Roddy Piper, you had Dino Bravo. I mean, it's a who's who of 80s professional wrestling, 80s WWF, WrestleMania, people that have been in multiple WrestleManias, and they came from Montreal. That was the big territory at the time.
I mean, the list also goes on. There was the Mountie, and there was also Haku. Well, Haku, he by the time I think he was known as King Tonga, I believe, during his tenure in Montreal. He was also wrestling there, and there was Rick Martel as well. Who turned out to be the model. That's how I remember him, as the model. And also, Jacques Rougeau's brother, Jacques Rougeau, by the way, is the Mountie, y'all. And his brother, Raymond, I believe, they were the Rougeau brothers. I mean, they all started in that territory, and part of the story, it's going to show like it's the rise and fall of a promotion in Canada that was known as International Wrestling, and it was based in Montreal.
I just want to put this out there that the family was interviewed for this episode, and this is the first time they had spoken about the tragedy since. So I really have to applaud the family for being open and honest and the strength to talk about this, even if it's 27 years later, I'm sure that whole family was devastated. So for them to actually be like, you know what, it's time to let this go, and let this out. It's a story that needs to be heard.
It is, and I'm gonna let you keep going in a second, but yeah, it's amazing that I'm amazed that they were able to convince the family to talk about it. But like you just said, they have to let it go, and I think honestly, I didn't know who Dino Bravo was. I'm being 100% honest. This may not be cool to say, but I had no idea who he was until I saw this documentary, or at least until I heard about this episode.
I knew Dino Bravo, but from the tapes that I used to watch as a kid, he was never that top star. So for me, I knew who he was, but he wasn't Ultimate Warrior. He wasn't Randy Savage. He wasn't Roddy Piper. He was kind of that mid-card guy. So we start off this episode and we meet his daughter, Claudia. And she's looking at pictures in a photo album. And this episode, a lot of French. There's a lot of French, so it's very subtitled. And which I had fun kind of learning a few words. I'm like, wow, it's not that far off from English,
Well, for me, it was difficult because they're not speaking the French that I'm used to speaking. They're speaking with the French-Canadian dialect. We call it Quebecois. But some of the words, it was a bit accurate based on how I would say. But yeah, it was hard for me to understand some of them because those accents, and then they speak their version of French. It's very, very difficult. It's very difficult for me to even grasp. And I'm a Frenchman myself.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring that up. I wanted to get your opinion on that.
They were speaking the way they speak, and I respect it. I'm sure they would respect the way I speak. But the bottom line is they were speaking French. Because wherever French is spoken, all the dialects, the grammar, whatever, they're all different. They're all tweaked. So it's nothing new that they were speaking it a bit differently.
I'm sure that's with any language too.
Oh,
but
yes.
Moving on. Dino Bravo was his wrestling name. His real name was Adolfo Bresciano. I believe I said that right.
Yes.
And he met his wife, Diane Rivest. Okay, they met in a bar, and she fell in love with him. She was 19 at the time, and he had offered to drive her home, and pretty much that's how their love story started. And then we meet pro wrestling historian Patrick Laprade. I think I'm saying that right?
Yeah, and he works for WWE. I think he's the French commentary guy for WWE.
Oh, wow. I didn't even notice that. He starts talking about how Dino was a superhero to him. He was the star of, like you said earlier, the International Wrestling based out of Montreal. It was the top promotion in Quebec. There was about 2 million people that tuned in every week to watch. That's amazing.
On a Saturday morning, too, which really surprised me. One of the guys mentioned, I think it was on a Saturday or Sunday morning, so I was like, they have the shows in the morning. That's usually something you don't see very often, especially in wrestling.
The promoter of International Wrestling was Tony Mule from 1971 to 1986. Another man by the name of Gino Brito was another promoter, and he and Dino became pretty much best friends. They were like family together, and Dino was the top draw in international wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
And he definitely had, the promoter by his side, which, Dino wound up becoming the matchmaker.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't just a matchmaker. He was everything. He was also the owner from 1982 to 86.
Yeah.
And he was the top guy. He was everything.
What I want to explain here is how in wrestling that's kind of looked at as kind of a negative thing. It's kind of a bad look when you're the owner, you're the promoter, you're the matchmaker, and you're the top guy. You're working the main event. You're working all the top guys. It kind of puts a label on you. It's kind of like, hey, I own this, and I'm doing this, and I'm winning every match. It's so in pro wrestling, especially like nowadays, it still happens. It kind of already kind of puts a bad look to you to the outside world. Maybe in your promotion, everyone understands, that this is how the business is. This is how your business is done. But, maybe guys from the WWF or other Canadian promotions could probably look at that and say, hey, this guy's the star of his own show here.
It is, and the Mountie spoke about it, and he said, I didn't like that. I wanted to be, I wanted to be the boss, but and Jacques Rougeau explained, even though he says that his brother were always like the third or the fourth match into the card, he said, well, it doesn't matter where I was because I knew that I myself was a main eventer. So even though he was not really happy with how things were going, I think he was just swallowing his pride and just working, doing as he was told because he wanted to build his career because he knew that opportunities would come for him in the future because Rougeau was he said he was young when he met Dino Bravo. He said he was 18 years old.
Yes, he was 18 years old.
I mean, being 18 years old, if you're not listening to Dino Bravo, I mean, that would probably be an easy way to kill your career.
Yeah, it could, but again, it's also that kind of that thought of who else can be the top guy if you're the only top guy, Mm-hmm. So I kind of see it from a wrestler's perspective of, okay, I see it, you're the top guy, we're all the B players, but how does anyone advance if you don't let anyone become the top guy? If you don't pass that torch, if you don't let guys come up, and show you what they can do and earn that top spot.
And it seems to me like when you were speaking about how it makes him look bad, I think part of the point is you're also trying to explain that when you're doing that to your talent, like you're holding him back.
Yeah, I mean, some talent will feel like you're holding them back, and some will just feel like, why am I here then? Yeah, I'm getting paid, but if I'm everyone, when you get in this business, no one gets in this business to say, I want to be a jobber, I want to be a mid-carder. No one gets in this business. Everyone wants to be a star. That's why we get in this business. You want to be famous, you want a star, you want the spotlight, you want the main event, you want WrestleMania, you want Wrestle Kingdom. That's why you get in this. So, of course, no matter who's in LA, they're gonna have that, whether they admit it or not. They're going to have that feeling of, I want to be in that main event spot. What do I have to do? How much more do I have to work to prove to you that I need to be in that main event spot? If give me the ball and I'll run with it. And yeah, maybe not all the locker room was ready to be in a top spot, but I'm sure there were guys. I mean, you don't run a promotion without building guys. You have to build guys. That's the only way a promotion becomes successful and can continue on, is if you keep building new stars and building new stars. So I can definitely see the maybe a disruption in the locker room because of that. And, they never really kind of said that in the documentary, but I felt like it was implied that kind of might have been the feeling amongst some people in the locker room.
Mm-hmm. And then we got to the point where Jacques Rougeau, it says that that Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson was another famous wrestler from Montreal. They called him and they said, Jacques, do you want to come to the World Wrestling Federation? And Jacques explains that, I don't know, because he described it like it's a jungle, like because the World Wrestling Federation was just beginning to become a huge, major global attraction. And him being young, he was like, you know what, I'm going to the jungle by myself. I don't know if I should do it. But then again, I mean, the money is good, the opportunities are there. Maybe I should do it, and that's why. And therefore, he even mentions that Dino Bravo begged him not to do it.
Yeah, but I can see Dino Bravo's point as like, man, like I don't want to lose you, but if you're not gonna give me a bigger opportunity than what I'm doing right now, if I'm just gonna be stuck here on third match, fourth match, and I want to be seventh match eventually, and I don't see that happening here, then I have to do what's best for my career and make more money for my family. Mm-hmm. Which I'm sure he was 18. He didn't have a family, but you still have to make money. You still have to, go out and seek these opportunities, because if he would have just stayed in Montreal, who knows? Like, maybe he would have just felt like he was wasting his time. Mm-hmm. So he had to make that jump.
So
You had to. And a lot of other guys, like we said, a lot of other guys were making that jump for the fact that they were being offered big money. And I can see that. You know, if you're going to offer me a better lifestyle, then by all means, I'll at least give it a try.
Yeah. So before we go to the part where he had to jump ship, we should mention the fact that he had an early stint with it. He had 2 stints with the World Wrestling Federation. Now, the first one did not last long. So they bring him in, and there was a huge tease, and this really, really blew me out of the water. So they were teasing a match to have Dino Bravo versus Hulk Hogan, and one of the dudes said that if they had done that in the Montreal Olympic Stadium, my God, that would have been I can't imagine how many fans would have showed up. That event probably would have sold out in probably in 10 minutes.
It definitely would have sold out. And I can definitely feel for Dino Bravo here because it's like he was that top star in Montreal. But Vince knew that if they went to Montreal and they put him against Hulk Hogan probably would have not been the baby face. Dino Bravo would have been the face. He would have been the hero. And at that time, Hulk Hogan is the hero. He's your top, So it would have been bad for Hulk Hogan. And
bad for the WWF, yeah.
Yes.
Although, but let's be honest. I mean, seriously, Dino Bravo he's not just a hero in Montreal. He was a god. So it's common sense. Of course, the Montreal fans, they're going to cheer for Dino Bravo over Hulk Hogan. But yeah,
but that's where this whole ego thing comes into play. Because there's a pattern of it throughout all wrestling is why so many big matches, so many dream matches never happened, and it's because of ego. Because no one wants to say, "Hey, I'll lose to you," or no one wants to say, I don't mind putting you over," And that's where that delusion starts. Because at the end of the day, if you're making money, if I'm about to make the biggest payday of my life. I'm Hulk Hogan, okay? I'm about to make a big-ass payday in Montreal, Canada, working against their top guy. Screw it. Because at the end of the day, this is predetermined. It's not fake, but it's not real. You're not Hulk Hogan in real life. I'm not Hulk Hogan. I'm not Chris Rex in real life. So... If people would just put that ego aside, we could have had that Dino Bravo match. I'm sure Dino Bravo didn't want to lose to Hogan, and I'm sure Hogan didn't want to lose to Dino Bravo. Kind of like how we were talking about with our previous episode with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. They didn't want to put each other over. The match, the Hulk Hogan Ric Flair WrestleMania match that never happened because Ric Flair didn't want to put Hulk Hogan over. Hulk Hogan didn't want to put Ric Flair over. What it comes down to is 2 guys who believe in their characters so much that they feel they cannot lose. But think about the money you're gonna make.
I love you. You took this explanation by storm. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, lay me on my back and pay me $1 million. I will not complain. Pin me, pay me.
You killed it, man. You're absolutely right. Who the hell cares? If you're going to make good money, if the match is going to be viewed by millions around the world, who the hell cares if you win or lose? It's predetermined. You should know that. That's the first thing you know about the business. And I'm amazed that the word ego wasn't even mentioned in that part of the documentary, because obviously people are going to say, nah. People are just going to take a side. They're not going to say it like we do. It's obvious that there was an ego involved. So, as a result of the matching being canceled...
Our job on this podcast is not to pick a side, though. What is it? What is it, Alex? What is our job here?
Oh, well, let me tell you very crystal clear. Tell the truth, the whole truth, and goddammit, nothing but the truth.
That's it. We're not here to pick sides.
Nope.
And, in this situation here, it's clear that ego's got in the way, and it prevented big money from being made.
This is another big what if. Another huge what if in the history of wrestling.
And that was his first first little stint with WWE and WWF at the time. And unfortunately, it didn't really amount to anything. And, he went back to international wrestling. He went back to what he knew. But yeah, if they would have sold that Olympic Stadium, man, man.
What's up? How's it going? You already know my voice. You know who I am. This is Down to the Playmaker Songs from the Playmakers Bar podcast. And I just want to take some time and talk about Anchor FM, as we've been using Anchor FM for over 2 years now, and it's been very good to us. It's been very great for us. So for those of you who are trying to get into the podcast world and you need a hosting platform and you don't have the budget and you want to do something free just to try it out to see where you at, try Anchor FM. Anchor is the one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid right away. So when you hear this, it sounds good enough. But I'm telling you right now, give it a shot. Anchor FM, by it being free, it gives you opportunity to step into the podcasting world and let you do your own thing. So if you want to give it a shot and you want to try to make some money or just do podcasting as a hobby, go to anchorfm.com/start to get started right away. And remember, once you get started, hit us up at the Playmakers Bar so we can listen to you at the show. Good luck.
Now we get into where Vince McMahon is starting to come into Montreal, and he's starting to, take the top talent, like you said, the Rick Martels, the Andre the Giants, the Mountie, the Hakus,
or King Tonga at the time.
I prefer Haku, but
or Meng.
so because he felt so disrespected and that this big match didn't happen, he decided that he was going to become, and this is where that bitterness comes in, and you see it a lot in professional wrestling, where it's screw Vince, Vince is the devil, which yes, he may make some bad decisions, but when you try to go up against Vince, when you try to be Vince's competition, and I hope wrestlers and promoters nowadays are listening to this right now, this piece right here. You cannot just wake up one day and you're going to take on Vince. You cannot just wake up one day and have an investor and you're going to take on Vince. Vince has been building this company for years. Vince's grandfather has been building this company for ages. There is no way that in a year, 2 years, 3 years, you're going to take out Vince McMahon.
I mean, you just can't do it.
You're not. You're not. And I get the whole revolution thing, and I get the whole, and it's clear that I'm talking about AEW here, and I mean no disrespect by it, but you have to kind of stay in your own ground. And I don't mean to get off topic here, but it's kind of like with TNA when they tried to go head to head with Monday nights against Raw. You can't. No matter how much talent you have, how much money you have to understand that Vince is a staple. It's a worldwide media conglomerate. It is not just a wrestling company. They are so much more than that. So if you want to compete with Vince, you have to compete with his production. You have to compete with his talent. You have to compete with his work rate. And you got to give it to him. And for Bravo to, out of bitterness, and this is why, again, I don't mean to speak bad on a dead man, but it was clearly out of bitterness that he wanted to make his promotion competition to WWF, which, hey, you kind of need an influence to do that, but I really think his chances of doing that were doomed from the start, and he obviously had no chance.
He had no chance in hell.
He really didn't.
And I don't mean to laugh at that, but going up to, like you said, I mean, you think you're just gonna compete with Vince and things are going in your favor. I mean, you're out of your mind. I mean, Vince has beaten everybody. I mean, learn a lesson from Ted Turner, from Eric Bischoff, from Paul Heyman, from everybody. Vince will take you down one way or the other. You just can't beat him. Vince has been doing this for decades. I mean, like you said, his father, his grandfather. WWE is just, I mean, I don't know if I should say untouchable, because honestly, we've all heard the term nobody's untouchable, but it seems like WWE is just untouchable. And you're right, it is bitterness, But now that we get to we get to a point where his international wrestling is on life. As I described, it's on life support.
It's pretty much on life support. Yeah.
There's all the talent's been gone. Like Vince McMahon took that talent away, and now Vince calls him. He invites Dino Bravo over, and he says, "Look, let's forget the past. I'll give you a contract. I'll pay you well. Just come work with me. We can do business together." And Bravo had no choice because he needed to provide for his family.
Of course.
So
as much as you want your promotion to succeed, the reality is if all your top stars are gone, and you're not going to make that money, you're not going to get that draw. I mean, it's the obvious choice. And he could have continued that fight, and it would have been a losing battle. It's either go out as a martyr or try to be a martyr. Or, you know what? Let's just kind of do the smart thing for my family, because at this point it's not about wrestling. It's about taking care of my wife, taking care of my family, providing a home.
And I had a couple of people tell me that they were surprised that Vince was not like, you know what, you wanted to compete, man. I'm not gonna hire you, but look, Vince is the kind of guy. Look, Vince wants to do business. Vince is willing to let go of the past because he wants everything to work out on both sides. I mean, he wants to build his business and get some talent up, and then Bravo needs to make money to provide for his family. But here's something I really have to say: when Dino Bravo signed with the WWF in 1986, he stepped into a world that he was not familiar with, and I will explain why. And this is we're going to explain. And this is going to go as in this part of the episode, because as Kris mentioned earlier, folks. When Bravo was running his promotion, he was everything: the booker, the guy who made the storylines, the owner, the top guy. When he went to the WWF, he had no control of anything whatsoever.
No, and like you said previously, like the Mountie said, it's a jungle out there. It's a whole different world. And yeah, he was making good money. When he signed, he was offered $300,000 guaranteed.
Was it a year? Do we know if it's per year?
I don't know if it was per year or if it was a total sum, but he was offered $300,000 guaranteed with a chance to make up to $1 million. Okay. And hey, but at that time, once you sign that contract, you have to understand that you are now a character for Vince McMahon.
Just like the Mountie explains.
And that still goes on today. And where it's kind of like you sign that contract, you have to understand that you are now a product of the WWE. Your social media is under speculation. What you wear, what you do. I mean, it's all under speculation, and it's you're under this microscope, and you have to understand that you're not going to be that top guy right away. To Vince McMahon, everything you accomplished before you got there, I don't want to say doesn't matter, but it kind of doesn't matter, because here is the global stage. Here is where the millions and millions and millions of people are here to see you, rather than the thousands and thousands.
I mean, you're traveling around. You're not just traveling like in the sections of the U.S. Like, you're not just in the South or in the Northwest. I mean, you're all over the country. You're all over the world, and you're traveling probably 3 times more than you were before. I mean, you're on the road between 250 to 300 days a year. I mean, that's brutal. And just like the way you explained, it's just like the Mountie explained. It's a jungle, but once you sign that contract, you have no control. Like, you belong to the WWF. Like, you have to, whatever they give you, you have to do it.
I feel like it's no different than a 9-to-5 job. You go into there, you do what your boss tells you to do, whether you want to do it, whether you like to do it, whether you like your boss, whether you hate your boss. You do what you're asked to do, and you go home, and at the end of the week, you get your paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think wrestlers should think of it that way. Really forget about this self-mark stuff that we do to ourselves. I'm Chris Rex. Chris Rex is just a name. Chris Rex is whatever I want him to be in that ring. it's not this big deal where I think I'm this should be on this pedestal. We think we're bigger and we're larger than life when really majority of us aren't.
All right, so the first thing with the character is Vince does not want him to be a huge baby face. So what he has him do is he has him bleach his hair blonde, and he turns him into a big anti-American Canadian wrestler.
Yeah, and it's funny because with Vince saying he had to dye his hair, Dino Bravo was like he didn't want to do it, but he understood it's what he was asked to do and he's going to do it. And he didn't like when he came into the locker room and all the guys were ribbing him and laughing at him. Like, he really did not like it because he felt like it was a joke to him. He was being treated as a joke. And I've heard personal stories of where guys have been in the WWE and they're told, we want you to look like this, and you go and do that, and it's like, oh, now I want you to look like this. So you go and do that, and they're like, oh, we liked how you looked before, so now you got to revert back. But now by the time you come back to them for another tryout, they're looking for something else, and it's and it's kind of like a test. I had a friend who was working for a company where they made him shave his head, and for a new gimmick and everything like that. So he did. He shaved, cut his hair, and he was told that he was just told that to see if he was willing to do what was ever asked of him.
I mean, it's just like, as we explained earlier, he had no control over anything. Like, he was property of the World Wrestling Federation, basically. That's why there's a term, like, when a wrestler is, like, laid off from WWE, that's why they say he's released from his contract, because he's free. He's set free. Like, he can go back on the indie scene and do whatever he wants. Like, he can reprise his old character name, whatever. If he has a trademark on his indie name, he can immediately revert back to it and do what he does with more freedom. That's how it is. So, but unfortunately, I mean, his run in the WWF was,
Well, they wanted him to be a heel. They had him dye his hair, and they put him with Jimmy Talk, who is one of the best managers. He's the best talker, and I think that that was a good pairing to kind of solidify him as a heel. You got this heel manager coming out with this guy, automatically he's a heel. But Dino's downfall was his broken English.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard for fans to get understand his promos or what he was saying. And this is when I seen this part last night. I went to my partner and I said, "Why would they have him talk then? Like, that's what Jimmy is there for. That's what the manager is there for. You usually put a manager with somebody that doesn't have that charisma, because if they have that charisma, they don't need a manager.
Exactly.
So I think they should have just had Jimmy talk for him. But hey, I wasn't a writer at that time. Nor am I a writer for WWE now. But another one of his downfalls was he didn't like doing jobs, and he was beat every week after week, and he felt that was taking away from his stock as a professional wrestler. That if fans are seeing you every week on TV lose, well, they're never going to expect you to win. They're not going to think of you. You're just that guy that lost,
Mm-hmm.
So, and it would hurt his value, which, I can see that, but at the end of the day, you're a product of the WWE. So if that's what they kind of want you to do, that's what they're going to do with you, and you see it happening in today's WWE, where a lot of people are unhappy with the position that they're in. But again, you're contracted to them. It's kind of like you these things going in. Nobody signs a WWE contract thinking, oh, they're going to let me do whatever I want. I'm going to be so free to do whatever I want. No one signs a contract thinking that. So you can't sign that contract thinking you're going to be this top star. You're going to be on the pedestal that fans put you on when you were on the indies working in front of 2,000 people, you know. And that's how Vince sees it as, okay, you're coming from working in front of a few thousand people to tens and 20,000 people and 40,000 people, 70,000 people. You know, it's kind of, yes, WWE is the big stage. If you go up to anybody and ask them about wrestling, 9 times out of 10, they're going to bring up WWE.
Exactly.
Why? It's what people know. You know, I'm sure, and again, I love Adam Cole. I think he's a great performer. But when he gets signed to WWE and they're putting him on TV, they still have to build him up to the WWE audience, because not all of the WWE audience knows there's even an Indies. They don't know there's even shows in their town. You know, they don't know this guy, and you have to. That's where that ego comes in, where you can't have that ego. And Dino had that ego of, he was so used to being a top guy in Montreal that now he's here and he's being told what to do, and he's got that ego of, I should be the top guy. I should be the top guy. And I get that you feel it's going to hurt your value, but it's not hurting your value because you're still getting paid. Regardless, you're getting paid whether you win or lose. You're getting paid whether you're third or fourth. You're getting paid whether you're in a tag match, whether you're in a singles match, when you're in a title match, whether you're working Hulk Hogan or whether you're working Rick Martel. You're still getting paid. So your value, there's a value dropping. I kind of don't agree with the whole that drops your value. Your character, that wasn't, you know, that was Dino Bravo, the character. Okay, that was not Adolfo Bresciano. They're not going on there on TV and saying, putting Adolfo out there. No, it's Dino Bravo. It's a character.
It's like being a character in a film.
It's kind of like, it's that whole believe in your own hype thing. And it's something that my trainer had told me is, don't believe in your own hype. This is, because outside this world of wrestling, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Outside this world of wrestling, outside, you know, when you're away from that ring, when you're home, the belt doesn't matter. What you did on TV doesn't matter. The match you had doesn't matter. Who you worked doesn't matter. It really doesn't. So, for him to have that attitude and that ego, I think that's really what really killed him. I think if he would have kind of came at it from more of a, you know what, I'm here to do my job, my family's being taken care of, I'm able to live this lavish lifestyle that I've wanted to live and that I have already put on myself, because that's something they did bring up, is that when he signed with WWF, he started spending a lot of money. And he had his house built and, you know, built from scratch, which I'm sure that took a lot of guap, you know. So you can't really sit there and say it's not benefiting you or that your value is going down. I mean, I don't know a lot of people that have their own houses being built, you know. You're living, he's providing you with and your family with a lifestyle that, if he did not offer you this contract, you wouldn't have this lifestyle.
I mean, in other words, it's not like Vince controls your finances. It's not like Vince can tell you, you can't buy this, you can't do that. I mean, that's a choice Dino made. So if Dino was like spending all that money, I mean, that's his fault. Vince just gave him the opportunity to, you know, provide for his family. So that's why Vince can't be blamed. But yeah, you're talking about the ego. God damn it, man, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I mean.
And, you know, after 7 years, you know, in 1992, he was released from his contract. And he seemed to, from what the Mountie had said, he seemed to be relieved. You know, he's like, I'm going home. I'm released. I'm going home. I'm going to go be free. Which, you know, I'm, you know, happy, you know, because I'm sure being on the road and having all that on your mind did weigh on him. So for him to finally be like, you know what? I don't have to put up with this anymore. You know, it's kind of a weight off your shoulders. You know, he's no longer he's no longer stuck. You know, but all he knew was wrestling. That's all he did. And when his contract expired, he was burnt out. There's no pension, there's no money coming in, and you're sitting at home sulking in your own sorrow because your career is winding down. You're losing the one thing that pretty much gave you everything and the only job you had. For as long as you can remember, this is the only job you've had, and now it's over. What do you do? And I can kind of feel that, It's you hear that story a lot where wrestlers, it's like when their run is up, there is no pension, there's no retirement, there's nothing to fall back on. Hopefully you saved enough money to where you can fall back, you have something to fall back on. But a lot of times it's not that case, because you don't know when your ride is over. You don't know when that fame is over. You don't know. You never. So you just you kind of spend it while you have it. You're out there and you're enjoying the life while you can. You don't know when. You don't expect it to come to an end. And when it does, I really feel bad for a lot of guys, because what do? Do you go work in the supermarket and have everybody there looking at you like, oh, that guy was on TV 2 years ago? Well, what's he doing working in Key Food? I really feel for those, and it's kind of like it makes me think, because I kind of put all my eggs in the wrestling basket. I never really kind of wanted to go to college or anything like that, so I dropped out like after half a semester. I was like, I sold my books back, and so it's I've been chasing this wrestling thing, but there's a lot of times where I think if when it's over, I don't have anything else really, I'm smart, I can do manual labor, I know things, but as far as a career, what do I do? And so I try to put myself in his shoes, and I can see, like, there is only one way to turn, and unfortunately, that's where we get into the next part of this episode.
This is professional wrestler Chris Rex, and you're listening to the Playmakers Blog Podcast, my only destination for sports talk radio.
You kind of turn to the only way you can get money, and the amount of money to support your family, turn to a life of crime.
And you know what? And before we get into that, what's really interesting is that he was a nephew of a Montreal crime boss who was known as Vic Catroni, who was known as the Egg, and he was believed by authorities to be involved in the organization for some time. It says that he was involved, like part of his role was in an illegal cigarette smuggling case. The whole thing is just interesting because, like you mentioned, when you're done wrestling, there's no other life there for you, and you're desperate to keep the family afloat, and you got to make money in a good possible way.
Yeah, and we're not talking about no $200 paycheck. Like, he has to now keep up with this lifestyle he has built for his family. Mm-hmm. So if for anyone out there that's listening, he should have just went and got a job. It's not that simple. He had a career that is now taken from him, that is gone. He needs to supply his family with that type of money. And unfortunately, in this world, there's only a couple places you can go for that, and one of those is the life of crime, the smuggling and the drug dealing and the quick money, the fast money, because that's what you need.
It's just what a world out there for wrestlers.
I just want to point out that it's not like he didn't want to go get it. It's like you can't just go to work at a supermarket. You can't just go to work at a bicycle shop, or you can't just do that. It's part of it's pride, and like I said, another part of it is you have to maintain this lifestyle now. Mm-hmm. That you've already built. And yes, he was the nephew of Vic Catroni, which I believe that family was the first mafia family in Quebec, in Montreal. Mm-hmm. And he was his nephew, so he always had that connection there. But was he a part of the mafia? Was he an official member? That's the mystery that we start to develop here. Is what was he part of it, or was he just kind of involved because he was family? Was he asked to do things because he was family?
Yeah, it was never confirmed. It was never confirmed if he was an official member. It's just that based on my friend of mine who's a criminal justice major, and he's explained this before. Like, just because you do jobs for the mafia, it does not mean that you're fully associated with it. It's because, like, if you're connected like that, and if they offer you to do just this thing and they pay you, some people just do it. But that doesn't mean that you're fish. It doesn't mean that you're a made man, I should say. If we've seen these films like The Godfather,
I was just about to say, if you've ever seen Donnie Brasco, a friend of mine, a friend of ours. You know, it's two different things. You know.
Yeah.
and that Italian accent just fucking came out.
Yeah, but as far as I know, like in the mafia, like he was not like. I think when you're officially like you're considered a made man. But I don't think he was ever that deep. Like he was just probably just doing like maybe side jobs like that because he needed the cash.
He needed the money, and his uncle, he knew what his uncle did, and he said, "Hey, I need this. I need something. Can you help me?" And he provided him with work, illegal or not. I'm not here to judge. I'm the type of person I kind of don't care where the money comes from or how you got the money. I ask no questions as long as that money's in my pocket. I'm, that type of person. So I'm not here to judge whether it's illegal or what he's doing was right. But they talk about how Dino was naive and imposing, but he was used as an enforcer. But because he was so strong and he had no fear, he felt untouchable. He felt like nothing can happen to him. And oftentimes, especially when you're when you're around that type of crowd, when you're around that type of environment, those type of people, that is not a feeling you should have of being untouchable. Because in that lifestyle, everybody is touchable. I mean, history shows like from crime boss to the guy just coming into and the book's just opened. Anybody can. Anything can happen to any one of them, So for him to have that feeling of nothing can happen, that right there, off the bat was scary to me when they mentioned that, because as I looked over to my partner and I said, oh, all right, I kind of see where this one's going now,
Mm-hmm. Probably, though, Vic Catroni died 9 years before Dino did, but maybe Catroni's brother was in charge. But whatever the case, the mafia knew of the relation because Vic was the founding member, and then they knew that Dino was his nephew.
It was his son, actually.
Oh, it was his son. Okay.
Yes, his son was actually a wrestler in the 30s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he recruits like, what? Yeah, you're family, so we trust you. But
I'm sorry. I meant to say Vic Catroni was a wrestler in the 30s.
Yeah.
His son was the boss at the time that Dino Bravo had started hanging around with them.
Yeah. So by the time Dino retires from wrestling, Vic Catroni's son is now the godfather of that family, or however you describe it.
Yeah.
But you mentioned like he was an enforcer, so that has me thinking if he was officially an enforcer. Usually they don't give. I mean, I don't know much about the world of the mafia, but based on some of the research I've done since I've seen those gangster films, it has to be so interesting. Like to be an enforcer, I think you have to be a made man. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I mean, that's in America. I mean, that this is in Canada. I mean, maybe the mafias in Canada run differently. I don't know.
It's funny that you say that because me and my partner were talking about it last night, and I said the same thing. I said I don't know. It's how. The Italian mafia here in the United States works. I kind of have an idea. Based on I myself am a huge mafia movie guy. I did a lot of research reports in high school and middle school on the mafia. I've always been kind of interested in that. So I was telling him it's kind of like you don't just pick up some guy off the street. You're not, you have to be in with them. And he said, well, maybe, the way they run it in Canada is different. So I just think it's funny that you had brought that up.
I mean, that's just, that's just a thought, really. I mean, like I said, maybe in Canada things are done differently, but But whatever reason how he got in, whatever the reason, whatever he did, I mean, he was part of it. And him being part of the mafia is just, I mean, at first maybe things went okay, because like you said, he thought he was untouchable. But then something went wrong. And they mentioned it. Something went wrong. And then Dino Bravo, and apparently Dino Bravo had some involvement in what went terribly wrong. And maybe that's why something happened to him.
Well, if you remember, they said that Dino had a bad temper. And he was a massive Habs fan. And Habs hated the Nordiques. And he had gotten into a fight with a player from the Nordiques at a bar one time because he called him phony. And he beat the crap out this guy. And I don't know why they brought that up. But it got me thinking maybe that altercation kind of had something to do with his death. Like, I'm sure it was a lot of things like that we'll be discussing, but it kind of seems like maybe he touched the wrong person, or because the whole mafia thing is you want to keep it low key. You don't go out there and put it out there. You don't go out there and purposely start fights. Like, I know that is definitely a rule, is you just don't go out there and fuck with anybody, because you don't know who the next man is. You don't know what type of heat you could be bringing on to the family. Mm-hmm. So maybe him beating the crap out of that hockey player kind of started, not saying that's what got him killed, but maybe that kind of was like his first warning, like, dude, you need to calm down. You can't just go around beating people up because you're mad someone called you phony,
Like in other words, you're saying is maybe that was the first strike and that he brought in some unwanted attention.
Exactly.
Yeah, but and by the way, folks, the Nordiques, they're now known as the Colorado Avalanche. They were in Quebec City, and of course, I mean, two teams in Quebec. Obviously, there's gonna be a huge rivalry, but yeah, I mean, he did have a temper. I mean, it's like any temper for a wrestler. I mean, if obviously if someone calls you fake, whatever, then obviously that's gonna set him off. But they mentioned there was a. As mentioned before, Dino was allegedly involved in illegal cigarette smuggling, and there was a raid. The family had something like in a warehouse, like $400,000 worth of the contraband, and I think the police seized it.
Yeah, Dino Bravo. Okay, so this is where things start getting interesting.
Oh, really? Seriously, it does.
His wife, she didn't have a good feeling about what was going on and things he was doing and the people that he was around. And she had brought up it was dangerous because if you don't know the rules, you are in trouble. Like we were just talking about before, there's rules to this. Yes, you are a quote unquote gangster. You're a part of a gang. You're a part of this mafia family. But there are rules and there are laws to that. And maybe Dino didn't know the rules. And something went wrong. So she was kind of fearing for it, and Dino had been, smuggling cigarettes, and he had set up. I don't know if he had set up the deal, if he was part of the deal, where they had $400,000 worth of contraband in a warehouse that was sitting there for a few days, and it got raided. People got, were arrested, and they were pretty much trying to put the blame on Dino for it. And Dino said, "Well, you guys should have gotten it out there the first night, not have it sit there for a couple days." Again, I don't know if this was the cause of the death, but again, the rules. You don't talk. You don't sit there and say, well, you guys should have done your job. That, it's kind of crossing that line of respect. It's like, all right, if someone's blaming you, just whatever. You don't talk back to them though, Mm-hmm. I think maybe that was another strike, but it got raided. And here, this is funny because in this they kind of give you it, piece by piece as it develops. And they talk to the Mountie, and they're interviewing the Mountie, and he says that Dino had called him to come see him as soon as he can. And those were the last words that he had ever said to him. And what's funny about this is the Mountie and Dino, like we said previously, they weren't really the best of friends. They weren't really that close. So for Dino to call him out of the blue and ask him to come see him, you know, it must have meant something. And what's funny is the Mountie the next morning went to go see him, and at the gas station, somebody at the gas station had said, they got your boy. And he looked at the newspaper, and there it was that it said that he had been murdered with 11 shots to the body and 7 to the head. Now, understandably, the wife did not really want to talk too much about what happened.
You can't blame her, really.
You know, so they tell the story about it was around midnight when Diane, his wife, had come home with 6-year-old Claudia, and they found him dead in his chair. Mm-hmm. Tony was one of the first to know, as they were best friends, and they both had their houses built together next door from each other. So Diane ran over there with her daughter, and she was crying, saying that Dino was dead. Tony didn't believe it at first. No way. He was shot 11 times, 7 to the head and 4 to the body. The gun was left by his body, and there was no sign of a break-in. The door was also left unlocked. So it's kind of... It seems like he knew what was going to happen to him, and that's really revealing. This is the really revealing part, because he had to have known he was in deep shit. And we're gonna progress this story as the episode did here, on what could have been. I've already given my 2 theories on maybe 2 straws that, all right, there was 2 strikes.
But
I'm sorry to see that. It's.
No, I mean, you're killing, man, and I love it. But everything you're saying is right. You see, and I noticed that they did it while his daughter and wife were gone. Did they know? Did they know where she was going? Were they waiting for her to be gone so they can kill her without her seeing? Just because maybe they were like, okay, well, she doesn't need to see it, or maybe they just didn't want to witness. And keep in mind, I think they said there was 2 guns at the scenes, a handgun with a silencer, and then an assault rifle.
Yeah, which shows that it could have been 2 murderers. And I mean this story is shocked all of Montreal. Like we said, he was larger than life. He was a hero in Montreal. He was an icon in Montreal. So this was definitely made the headlines, and there's no answers. But it seems he was scared for his life. And from what the Mountie says, in his opinion, he thinks Dino did something that he wasn't supposed to, and he knew he was fucked from there. He was screwed. He knew that death was going to come for him.
Which has me thinking, why did he call the Mountie? Now, I'm going to put some theories of my own. So why would he call the Mountie and say, I need to see you? Could it be that maybe, number one, he was going to confess what he's been up to, and that, I'm probably about to die, whatever. He was probably going to fess up to him and say, look, I know we were never close, but I've always cared about you. I've always respected you. You need to know the truth. I was even reading that Bret Hart actually said, shortly before his death, Dino came up to him and said something about he did something wrong, that his days were, quote, numbered. But that's just a theory. I mean, that's just, a source that, whatever. I mean, we can't even confirm that story, but that's what I believe. Maybe, the Mountie, he was going to maybe tell the Mountie this, this, and just, let him know. Or maybe he was going to beg the Mountie, can you get me out of Montreal? Can you help me? I mean,
who knows?
Even the Mountie doesn't even know, because...
It was what we do know and what the facts are, and I know you love the fact. The fact is, it was definitely a desperation call.
Oh,
definitely
I mean, it's easy to tell, because, like you said, they were not close, and I'm sure Mountie was thinking, out of all the people he knows, why is he calling? Why is he calling me? Why would he want me? We're not close. I mean, we're not even. I mean, we're coworkers. I mean, I know him, and that's it. But we're not friends. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's the should I say? I mean,
Well, the police.
that's the exclamation point. That's dead giveaway. I should say that's the dead giveaway of the fact that it's a desperation act of desperation. He called for somebody that he doesn't know, that he's not close to.
Well, like you said, they discovered 17 bullet casings from 2 different firearms. One was a machine gun, and this led people to think that there were 2 assassins. And they're kind of tying this to organized crime because 2 people who had lived near Dino were killed 9 months and 4 months before his murder, and they had ties to the mafia and cigarette smuggling. And at the time that the police were searching the house, as they would normally do in an investigation, $55,000 and contraband cigarettes were found in the house 3 days after his death. And the investigators feel the death was over the money that was in the house, and that is more than enough money for someone that they killed over, especially in the mafia. So that's if he was taking money or maybe hiding out the money and stashing the cigarettes and the money for himself, maybe that's what he was doing. I mean, there's just so many theories out there, Alex.
I mean, if he was doing that, that's called stealing from the mafia, and the mafia does not take kindly to that. You do not steal from the mafia.
I mean, again, it seems like it's been strike after strike after strike after strike because. I mean, I don't know any. Okay, I'm gonna have to edit this one out. From the movies that I have seen, let's put it the legal way. From the movies that I have seen, you would not stash your illegal work at home. It's not unless you were planning on holding that out for yourself. That's not something you keep that for your mafia life, that lifestyle and your home lifestyle is, you keep that apart. You don't bring that home with you. So when they said that they found it in his house, the $55,000 and the cigarettes, that kind of got me thinking that's kind of fishy because you wouldn't bring that home with you.
No.
That's definitely not something you want your wife looking through. That's not something you want your daughter accidentally looking through or anyone, So that definitely made me, think a little bit like, what was his intentions here?
You see, more what ifs. And as I've said it numerous times, this whole documentary just brings what if after what if after what if after what if. And this is just more like, Why was the contraband of the money in his house? Did he steal it, or maybe was he just illegally? Maybe he was just holding it in his house. Whatever it was, it got him killed. I mean, and remember how you mentioned $55,000 is enough to get you killed. I'm like, honestly, I mean, I don't even know whatever. I mean, bottom line is if you steal whatever, I mean, they'll kill you anyway. But that does have my head scratching because this has me thinking. Did he steal that contraband from one of their warehouses and keep it for himself? Because if he did, I mean, that's a big no-no. And stealing money and the contraband, how they operate, those are two huge things.
If you remember, this is something that really stuck in my head. He had a meeting at a bar with someone that was looking to pretty much share business, and this guy was a cocaine dealer. Now. If there's anything I know about the quote-unquote mafia, they do not deal in drugs. They do not associate with drugs.
I learned that in The Godfather.
So again, another theory here is, was this a side deal on his own? Because remember, the cigarettes are not his. He's involved with the cigarette smuggling through the mafia. So if he's going and making a side deal, now Alex, you don't make side deals without talking, bringing it to the table. You don't.
No.
So if he was making a side deal with a coke dealer, was he selling coke as well? And is it because of this side? Could this been a side deal that they found out about, and they're like, well, you're kind of cutting our profits here? Again, it seems like he's just kind of breaking all the rules here.
I mean, as you mentioned, the first thing he did, the whole thing with the bar fight, if that was the first strike, he started bringing unwanted attention, and if he had a habit of that, it got worse and worse and worse. It got to the point where, like, okay, look, we have to get rid of him. He's a liability. We don't deal with that. He needs to be gone.
Hey, this is Donnie the Playmaker Says. I want to take a moment to thank you guys for listening to us at the Playmakers Bar Podcast. Just to let you know, if you're listening to us on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, why don't you go ahead and leave a review. Tell us what you think of the episodes that you listen to, what you think of the podcast in general. If you listen to, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, Castbox, or any other platforms that we're on, follow us. Download the episodes. Let us know any kind of way that you want to let us know, whether it's on our Facebook page, the Playmakers Bar Podcast, or on my Twitter page at Playmakers Stars. Just let us know, because we enjoy interacting with you guys, and we want to show our appreciation. So follow us, like us, let us know how we're doing, and thank you for listening to the Playmakers Bar Podcast.
Does the story end here? No. It gets even more interesting, because now we bring up the natives, the Native Americans, the Indians. They were actually in the ones running the smuggling. And actually Dino had brought his daughter to them a few times, on runs. And she thought they were just friends. And the cigarettes, he was selling them by the case for half price. And most everybody knew he was in the smuggling business, because everyone smoked, and no one wanted to pay full price for cigarettes. I mean, I sold cartons of cigarettes for, I used to go out to Virginia, pick up like 3 or 4 cartons, bring them back to New York, and sell them for $7 and still make a profit. So, like, I understand, and everybody knew it, and at that time everybody was like, hey, I'm getting these cigarettes for cheap. Why am I going to open up my mouth? I don't care, So, but he brings up the natives, and from what I know about the natives, they seem like peaceful people. So I don't think that they even had a thing to do with the murder. Then again, I don't know, but the Native American people seem to be peaceful people. I mean, I'm sure they. After what they've been through, I'm sure they aren't the type of people to go and murder and kill, and pretty much destroy a life. But they did bring up the natives, and it was a theory that at first struck in my head, but it's like maybe I'm thinking too much into that one.
I see, and that's just another what if, more what ifs. We'll never know.
What we do know, and this is, I think this is a big shocker of the episode. Like, this was the climax. Like, this was that punch to the, that punch to the face to wake you up. Rick Martel was the only wrestler that Dino Bravo talked about, with his role in organized crime, but Rick Martel declined to take part in this series, which I can understand. It doesn't matter how many years later, 30, 40, 50 years later, that's, he's kind of a target if he opens up and if he says things, so I could kind of understand him not wanting to take part in this series, because this is on a national television network, that's being viewed by the thousands, and I hope one day the millions, because this is a great series. But to go publicly like that, and you don't know who's watching this, I can understand him not taking part. But they did show a 2007 interview where he did shed some light on the subject. He said that Dino went to see the Indians. They were big wrestling fans, and Dino pretty much had a monopoly with them. That right there, because kind of ties into my side deal theory. If he's got to do cigarette smuggling with the mafia, and now Rick Martel is saying that he pretty much had a monopoly with the Native Americans, that means he was cutting out the mafia 100%.
Mm-hmm.
That 100%, that they'll kill you for that.
I mean, they see that as not only disrespect, but you're selling them out, and they don't take kindly to it.
Exactly, you're pretty much taking their business away from them. And they were only able to pass the cigarettes because they had a river pretty much locked down. And the cigarette business was so great, and this is where the story I had previously told. The cigarette business was so great that pretty much the cocaine people wanted to get in and get a piece of the cigarette action. And Martel said that Dino did hook up the cocaine guys and had the $400,000 shipment somewhere. When the coke guys went to go pick up the shipment, it was intercepted by RCMP, and everything was seized. And the blame is getting thrown around $400,000. That's a lot of money. And again, we know that wasn't Dino's money. So again, he definitely was making these deals without the permission of the higher ups, the people running the show there. Again, you just don't do that. You don't make side deals. And I'm not trying to justify the mafia I'm not trying to side with the mafia. I'm just trying to explain that if you get into this lifestyle, you can't cut them out of a business they brought you in. You don't you can't make side deals based off of their business without them knowing. And you're working with guys who are dealing cocaine, which is a big no-no in the mafia. So it kind of makes me feel like the New Jack episode where it's kind of like, I don't want to justify someone being murdered. I don't want to justify someone being stabbed, and but you kind of know what you're getting into with this situation. And it makes me believe more that he definitely knew he was going to get killed at this point. By the time this 400,000 comes into play, he had to have known that he was done. The 55,000 he could have got killed for, but $400,000, and the fact that the feds were pretty much on it. They knew it was there.
And if they knew that he was involved, it's probably over either way, either death or a prison sentence.
Exactly.
So the way to end it is he was cornered and there was no way out.
Pretty much. And like I said, he was sitting in his chair with his hand on his remote, watching hockey, doors unlocked, no sign of a struggle, no sign of trying to defend himself. He knew. And I guess the whole sitting in the couch with the controller watching hockey, I guess maybe that was his way of, I'm going to go out watching something I love. I'm going to go out comfortable, Mm-hmm. And in a really cynical way, in a weird way, it's kind of like, okay, I know I'm going to die, but at least let me do this. Let me go out my own way. That's the wrong words to you. Kind of let me go out comfortable. I'm in my house, in my chair, watching my favorite sport. No, death is not comfortable. No, being shot fucking multiple times is not comfortable. But it brought peace to him, knowing that, okay, I know I'm going to die, but at least in my mind, this is the last thing I'm doing.
And that was it?
Yeah, man. So as we get to the end of the episode, it's obvious it was someone that Dino knew that had murdered him, that had assassinated him. And the theories going around are maybe that it was the mafia, or like I said, the Native Americans. They probably wouldn't have done it, but maybe the biker gangs he was involved with done it. Again, nobody will ever know.
Because no one's going to fess up to it.
No one's ever going to fess up to it, and that's the sad part. It's just always going to be one of those mysteries where we're going to have these theories, and we can try to put these pieces together ourselves, and we're never going to complete this puzzle because, unfortunately, one of Montreal's greatest wrestlers, sadly had his life taken away when at the end of the day, all he was really trying to do was provide for his family after his career had gotten taken away. And that's really the driving point. I don't want the driving point of this episode to be that, this guy was died and we're kind of celebrating death, or we're trying to, make an excuse for his death. No,
not at all.
But I mean, all he was really trying to do, whether you agree with his methods of trying to make this money for his family or not, he was just trying to do all he could, and the only other option he had in life, because his career was taken from him. And if you've ever been in that position, and you know what he's gone through, and at that point, I think that was just the start of it. Once you get into that lifestyle, and again, whether he was actually part of the mafia, whether he was part of the family, and I don't mean family. Yes, he was family, but the mafia family, the gang, as you want to say. It kind of seems like the second he got involved with that, he was doomed. And again, there was no other option. So it's kind of like either sit at home, be miserable and broke, or at least try to make money for my family, man.
It's the difficult life of a professional wrestler, folks, because once your career ends, you're just dumped out. That's it. They don't take care of you.
But on a positive note here, I don't mean positive, but the case is still open, and as we've seen from last week's episode that we did on Jimmy Snooker, I mean, it could take 20, 30, 40 years for someone to bring this to trial, It took 30 years for the Nancy Argentino case to finally come to trial. So if this case is still open, who knows? Maybe there will be some closure here. Maybe we there in sometime in the near future, or maybe in 10 years, maybe when me and you are no longer here, maybe someone will open up to it. Maybe someone will admit to it. Maybe someone will be tried and they will be, charged with murder.
And then
there is that hope that, and I at least hope for his family that they still have that hope that, even though it's kind of like it's been this long, it could still be solved, especially with the technology we have now. And who knows, maybe someone from 27 years ago is really feeling bad and, is really like, it's time to speak up about this.
All we can do is hope, because the family deserves answers.
Yeah. And, I enjoyed talking to you with this episode, Alex. I really did like this one. I think this was probably our longest episode, maybe.
Oh, definitely. And this was very productive because I was able to make so many good points, and and I was listening to you. I mean, you killed it, Kris. You really did.
Thank you. I can't do this without you, so I can't take all the credit.
And I'm saying the same thing. I can't do this without you. So
we are the Hardy Boys. We are Team 3. It is a tag team here. Sometimes I need to come in for that hot tag. Sometimes you need to come in for the hot tag. But you know what? At the end of the day, we double team this. We get the win.
And we put it through the table. So before we let you go, next week's episode will be David Schultz and a slap heard around the world.
I am looking forward to this one because as a teenager and as a backyard wrestler, and even now, sometimes I'll watch that video and it makes me laugh. It's one of those things that every time I see it, it never gets old for me. So I'm definitely going to have a good time talking to you about that and giving my opinion on David Schultz.
Well, right before we let you go, ladies and gentlemen, I'm like to take a moment to give a shout out to Darnell Salins, aka the Playmaker. He made his return yesterday. He released an episode on The Last Dance. We all know the documentary on the Chicago Bulls, during their glory days, the 90s. The Last Dance made its debut on Sunday on ESPN, and the documentary is about arguably one of the greatest sports dynasties' final championship run, and it's about the 1997 and 1998 Chicago Bulls.
Yes, definitely check that out.
Yes.
Without Darnell, we wouldn't be here doing this.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
So, big shout out, and I'm glad he's coming back. Yeah, he's back to podcasting, man. He's kind of been out of it, and he's been more doing the producing and production and helping us with this show. So it's nice to have him back on and having more content, man, because, I don't know how many people out there do listen to the other podcasts we are involved in. You have your Bear of Texas podcast. Darnell has The Last Stand. He has Playmaker's blog. Me and you collectively have this Dark Side of the podcast. I have Motley Mondays, which is our 80s rock radio show.
Must listen, folks, by the way.
Thank you. And which is under Pipe Bomb Radio, which is a great friend of mine, Ricky, the president, Ricky Litwinkowicz. I've known him. He's actually known me since I was a baby. But we're all this collective unit. Yes, we may be different names and under different brands, but we're this collective family, and all we really want to do is for us to really boost each other's content and boost each other's shows and come together, because really without all of us in these moving parts, none of this is possible. The same people that listen to Motley Mondays, they know about Dark Side of the podcast because of Motley Mondays and Pipe Bomb Radio, and Dark Side of the podcast knows about The Last Dance. So it's really, we really have to keep pushing each other, and I can't stress it enough. Like, it really is hard, and it's something I was talking to Ricky about the other day. It really is hard to do this. To really. The amount of hours and the work throughout the week that goes into putting on the show, whether it's live or recorded, I mean, it's a lot of work. It's not just, hey, I'm going to put my mic on and we're going to record. No, me and you have to do research. Ricky, when he's doing Pipe Bomb Radio, he has to play songs. He has to try to remember and play songs. And make sure he didn't play them already. He has to make sure it's going to be songs that everyone's going to hear. He has to also remember to make time for requests, which is hard to do on live when you have a set list. And, we always, have to put over, the channels we're on and the people that are helping us build. And so for you guys to listen and tune in, man, it really is important that all of our friends and family and our peers tune in, because without them, we're not able to do this. We're not going to be able to keep putting out content and keep putting out new episodes. And it's really, it really gets me and Ricky down sometimes. When we look at the numbers and we're like, okay, last week we had this, and this week it's kind of not that. And we know where the listens are coming from, and we know, so it's kind of like just. We really need you guys to just put in an effort to listen to all of our stuff. If you listen to Dark Side of the Podcast, listen to The Last Dance. I'm actually going to check out The Last Dance right after this. Check out Pipe Bomb Radio. He does 3 days a week. He does Pipe Bomb Radio. I do Motley Mondays every Monday. I mean, it's not the same. No one show is going to be the same. So I just really wanted to express my feelings on that to you, the listeners, because you really are what makes and breaks us. And without you guys, like this really isn't possible. And we do this for you guys. During this the whole reason I wanted the podcast is during this time, this quote-unquote pandemic that we're in, that me and Rick like to call a Steve Carino virus. I feel people need entertainment. People need something to take their minds off the bullshit that we're all going through.
Amen.
So, and that's why it's like, okay, I want to do 80s rock because 80s rock is just so feel good, and it puts you in that good mood, man. And then you came to me with Dark Side of the Podcast, and it's like, you know what? What if we did a different spin on it, where we had the sport, where yes, they do their show. Vice has the show Dark Side of the Ring, but we kind of have our own little spin on it, because we're taking the facts that they have built and kind of building our own theories on it, So no one podcast from either of us is going to be the same. So just go out your way to check out them all. We just want to entertain you guys, and if it's for an hour, a half an hour each day, if we could just make you forget about all your worries, that's all we want to do, man. And I guess that's what I want to leave this off with, man. I think that's a nice way to leave this off.
Well, folks, your loyalty is greatly appreciated. Teamwork is key, y'all. And please tune in for Darnell's return episode, because just like me, Darnell tells the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And the same thing goes for Kris. We are committed to giving you guys a story, and we will not tell lies. Y'all have a good night. We'll see y'all next week.